Hey, call me Louis. This is my spot. LuiSpot.
Colonialism in any form or any manifestation is unacceptable in the modern world. You then begin to understand what are the core principles that would cause our countries in the region, in the Caribbean region, and China to find a common platform. And the reality is that Barbados, Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana took decisions in the 1970s with the opening up of Cuba relations and with the opening up of relations with China that reinforced that notion of self-determination and mutual respect with countries. And it is against that backdrop that the relationship has taken place. I'm amused when I see topics such as this, because really and truly there is an unconscious bias that has led to this topic. And the question is whether any country has the right to be able to assert that it wants to help redefine a global order in a multipolar world. And we clearly believe that you do. But the unconscious bias is to suggest that only Western civilization has that right, and we know better. If we are to be faithful to the principles of the Bandung Conference or of the United Nations International Declaration of Human Rights and the manner in which we have set out to engage each other globally, then it is in all of our interests for every country to rise as far as possible and for every country to be able to offer cooperation on the basis of mutual respect. And therefore, I am amused, but simply say like President Kagame, that those who would wish to disparage it should remember that negotiations take place on two sides. And that in those circumstances, that if there are examples where one side has gotten the better of the other, I can assure you that it is not unique to China. There are many examples where other countries have taken advantage of other people. So let us focus, however, on how we can make the world a better place. And it is no doubt that there are large countries with strong economic power, military power, and strong civilizations that can make the world a better place. But the big issue is, what are the values and what is the trajectory? And if we have a world that does not see small countries, does not feel or appreciate the role of small countries, then we have a problem. And therefore, our concern really is, and that's why I went back to the Bandung Conference, because the precepts that existed then, in 1955, ought to be the precepts more than ever. I want to make this one point. We are in the throes, in my view, of the dying of the current world order. And the new world order clearly is struggling to emerge. We are going to have to ask ourselves whether the only players will be sovereign countries, whether there is not a role for other players, particularly with respect to the preservation of global public goods, whether we don't need to be able to look for funding beyond country funding, particularly when countries have said that there is a dearth of capacity on their part for more public money to fight climate, to be able to fight against the pandemics of the world and prepare for the next pandemics, to be able to deal with the digital divide that is only increasing the inequity and the poverty that may exist out there. How are we going to make this world more effective? And even with the might of China or the might of the US, that is not going to be enough. And that is why I'm saying to us that what matters are the precepts and the values to which we hold firm. What matters to us is how do we preserve the global public commons? Because if a mosquito can cause someone to die, as small as it is, let us equate that now to countries. And if there are small countries that are exposed with no strong public health systems, they too can become the biggest risk to global stability if new diseases with the new pathogens that are developing because of the increased climate, because of the increased droughts, because of the increased rains, all of these things put all of us at risk. And I ask simply the question, why are we as countries behaving in a way as if we do not have a common existence and a common battle to fight that is in fact greater than what each of us on our own can mount, even China, even the US, as large as they are. The need for planetary cooperation and the need for us to see how best we can unite is really where we ought to be going, rather than worrying about who has the edge over the other. Thank you.
Bearing in mind, of course, China has the veto power on the Security Council. Would you have any confidence that Beijing would be willing to relinquish some of its power in the UN Security Council to provide for a more broad-based organization, this main peacekeeping forum for the world, which seems to be failing?
I'm not sure that you're asking me the right question. I think that the issue is, will all 5 P5 countries...
But they're not going to, are they? We know they won't.
And therefore, if they're not going to, then we will reap what we sow. I made the point earlier that we are seeing the end of the current world order and the birth pangs of a new world order. The United Nations system was formed when most of the countries of the world were not sovereign entities. And whether we like it or not, it cannot reflect a true representation of the world's current realities. If we want to hold on to the past, then we better get eyes in the back of our head rather than in the front of our head, because we are seeing the dying of the current world order. The bottom line is, BRICS is an expression economically of the fact that 80% of the global south wants to have a voice of economic self-determination with respect to their futures. Similarly, if we don't reflect that kind of inclusive approach within the United Nations system, the United Nations will become less and less relevant to the realities of the people of this world.